Dig your hand in the land. We're gonna have a meeting, everybody.
Hey everybody, this is Kyle Hoffman with Minnesota Farmers Union, bringing you a new episode of In the Tractor Seat. Tim Penny is in the tractor seat this week to talk about Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation and their program Acres for Good. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I'm going to read a short bio of Tim here, and then we'll kick it off to him. So Tim Penny has led Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, or SMIF, since 2007. From 1982 to 1984, he represented Minnesota's first congressional district in the U.S. House of Representatives. He was actually my first member of Congress. He served in the Minnesota State Senate from 1976 to 1982. He also served as a senior counselor at Himmel-Horner, which I hope I'm saying correctly, a Twin Cities-based public affairs firm, and a senior fellow at the Humphrey Institute. He's also co-authored 3 books, Common Sense, The 15 Biggest Lies in Politics, and Payment Due. Born and raised in southeastern Minnesota, he received his BA in political science from Winona State University and was a lieutenant commander in the Navy Reserve. Thanks for being with us, former Congressman Penny, president of SMIF, fellow Southern Minnesotan, I should say. I'm a 5th generation Southern Minnesotan, so it's good to be in familiar, neighborly company. So welcome.
Well, we share that in common. I too am a 5th generation Southern Minnesota. Grew up on a family farm, which is not in my bio, west of Albert Lee, about 15 miles. And so I feel very comfortable in the tractor seat today.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my family farm's just outside of Madison Lake, so not far from Albert Lee at all. So
yeah,
great to have you here. And we'll pitch it to you. You can tell us a bit about SMIF. And we got Diane on the line here with Farmers Union, and she's looking for your slides. But if you want to give us a brief overview of what Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation is and
sure, I can do that. It looks like she's got it on screen already. So I can just walk through that. I've been the president of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation for 14 years now. There's a map coming up later in the presentation that I'll show, but I'll just mention today, for me, having the opportunity to lead this foundation at this stage in my life is an affair of the heart, because the 20 counties that the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation serves are essentially the same area, or the same counties that I had the honor to serve in Congress for a dozen years back in the 1980s and early 1990s. The nice thing about the work at the foundation, and it is reflected in our motto at the bottom of the first slide, collaborating for regional vitality, it's because that's the way we approach our work here. It's all done in collaboration and partnership with other groups and organizations that are engaged in community and economic development work here in our part of the state. The next slide up, and I often say that we work in collaboration and partnership in all the aspects of our work, which is not always the case in Washington, where I spent a dozen years of my life. The vision and the mission that we've established for our foundation is really similar to the vision for this region that are established by many of our partner organizations, whether they be chambers of commerce or economic development agencies or other community groups. So there's really nothing unique here except to say that our mission is to invest in the economic and community vitality of this region. We came into existence 35 years ago, and if you go to our website, we've actually got a timeline on our website with some of the key developments and activities that we've been engaged in since our initiation back in the mid-1980s. I was in Congress at that time, and as is often the case, Congress was a day late and a dollar short responding to the farm crisis. We lost tens of thousands of family farmers across the Midwest. Tragic, we're still paying the price for that. But as those farms went under, the McKnight Foundation, Minnesota's largest family foundation, looked at rural Minnesota and made the determination that they wanted to do something to help invest in the future of rural. So that's how our foundation and 5 other rural foundations, collectively covering all of the 80 non-metro counties in the state, came into existence. And our mission from day one has been to invest in economic and community vitality in the regions that we serve. I will say in retrospect, that Congress finally did get around to crafting farm debt restructuring legislation during my time there. Actually, they followed a Minnesota model that I and my colleagues brought to our friends on the Agriculture Committee, and that then it created the basis for a lot of debt restructuring that did finally save family farms here in our state. But I'm now leading an organization, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, that for these 35 years has been invested in the economic future of our region, because as we lost so many family farms, many smaller communities struggled as well. The next slide up is basically an overview of what we've invested over the 35 years that we have been in existence. Programming, almost 60 million, loans to small business startups or early stage businesses, almost 35 million, grants totaling almost 44 million. We raise about 10% of our budget every year locally from individuals, corporations, banks, local units of government, but we're bringing into this region $10 easily, actually more recently $13 for every dollar we raise within the region. We built an endowment fund over these years, and we can take earnings off that endowment fund to invest in the region, and it comprises about 20% of our annual budget just from those earnings. And we typically expend about $5 million annually, although last year, with extra resources coming through us into this region in response to the COVID economic crisis, we actually had a budget of about $17 million in the last fiscal year. The next slide up, if you can move it forward. And am I capable of doing that, or do I have to wait on your end to have that done?
I believe it's Diana's the only one with the capability to switch. So if you want to just let her know when to flip, that's perfectly fine.
Yep, and we need to move to the next page if she's still helping out. That is the region we serve, and I won't stop on this very long, but that used to be the old 1st Congressional District. Pretty much a couple counties weren't in the old district, but virtually all of these counties were in the district that I had the honor to serve. And of course, my family farm was down in that Freeborn County area. Yours was either in LeSueur County or Blue Earth County.
Just on the edge of Blue Earth, yep.
Yeah. Next slide up. We invest almost $2 million annually in early childhood initiatives because we believe, first of all, we know the needs there are great. And we also know that it's an investment in our future workforce to get these young children off to a better start, because if they don't come to school ready to learn, they often never catch up. And it's also an investment in our current workforce, because with many 2-income and single-parent households, they want quality childcare for their children, preschool-age children. The next slide is really just bullet points of some of the programs that comprise that 1.8 million that we invest annually, and sometimes again it's more than 1.8 million. But I won't go in great detail because I want to leave plenty of time for questions. But among the programs are annual grants that we push out the door for groups and organizations like an ECFE, an early childhood family education program at a school district, that support the expansion, the enhancement, the improvement of early childhood. We give away 25,000 early reader books every year to roughly 70 organizations each year for early reading programs. Many libraries and school districts in the region apply for those and use those for early literacy programs. Our partners are Capstone and Abdo Publishing Companies, both out of Mankato, Minnesota. And we do numerous early childhood provider trainings each year so they can get the continuing ed credits they need to keep their licensure to stay in business and to be the best that they can be. Dozens of those trainings every year, and hundreds of early childhood providers take advantage of those trainings at no cost. It's a benefit we bring to the region to help support quality early childhood offerings in the region. And we are working with numerous communities. Last year, I think 59 communities received some assistance from us as they explored solutions to their childcare shortage. So all of that adds up to almost 2 million of work each year that we support in the early childhood space. Next up is a map that just at a glance shows you how we try to spread those resources across the 20 counties we serve. The next slide up gets into our next area of programming, which is economic development, or I often call it entrepreneurship, because most of our work here is focused on startup businesses or early stage businesses that are trying to grow our economy. The majority of jobs in America are provided by small employers. So here in rural Minnesota, we know that investments in new businesses are a part of our economic future. Here again, roughly 2 million, if you count the value of our lending, goes into support of entrepreneurship in our region each year. The next slide here again lists in bullet point fashion the various programs we offer here. We do about 25, 30 small business startup loans or early stage business loans each year, often on our own or on referral from a bank, sometimes in partnership with a bank. We do several, maybe 5, 6, 7 gap funding loans every year. Here again, those are always in partnership with a bank or an EDA in our region. We do have an equity fund. We've taken part of our endowment dollars and made them available for equity investments. But frankly, we haven't had to dip into our endowment to support the 16 or roughly 16 equity investments we've done so far. We've been able to do that out of our annual budget. We're very pleased to play a role in providing equity for startup businesses here in our region. We do that always in partnership with other equity investment groups like the Southeastern Minnesota Equity Fund, Gopher Angels, the Triangle Fund, Mayo Medical Ventures, but it's helping to start and keep businesses, innovative new businesses growing here in our part of the state. The bullet in the middle of this slide, the Prosperity Initiative, is a business training program we started several years ago with a grant from the Minnesota Department of Economic Development, and we've continued that program with our own and other resources in the several years since. But each year we recruit a cohort of about 15 new immigrant or minority entrepreneurs in order to help them get off to a stronger start with their business idea. And it's been wildly successful. And one of our program recipients, the lady pictured in the photo at the side, is now on our board of directors and helping our foundation shape its work here in the region. We do other things as well, including small business training programs, but I won't go into detail on all the other activities in our business support and financing space, except to mention that years ago when I took this job, there was no Service Corps of retired executives, retired business people that then provide mentoring to new businesses or young businesses. And so we brought a SCORE chapter here to Owatonna that serves the area in the central and western part of our 20-county region, because there's always been a strong SCORE chapter in Rochester serving some of the more eastern regions. But all of that is in support of new business growth and new job opportunities here in our part of the state, and we're proud to invest a couple $2 million annually in that entrepreneur work. The next slide up is just a map to show you how those resources have been spread across the region in our most recent fiscal year. And every year the map changes because 1 year more businesses in particular counties may apply or receive some of our help than in other years. But I think we do a good job of spreading those resources across our region on an annual basis. The next slide up talks about our community vitality work. And this is where Acres for Good comes into the picture. And I'll describe that more in just a moment. But we do invest $1 million, $1.5 million in this category every year. That includes the support we bring to small towns that want to create and maintain community funds. The larger towns in our region, we do have about a dozen, have long since had community funds with huge endowments. We're trying to help smaller towns in our region create endowment funds so that they can take the earnings off of those endowment investments and bring them to the benefit of their community. It may be, community needs can vary. It may be things related to park and recreation. It may be scholarships at the local school. That's up to the local community fund to determine. But we play a role of helping them get these community funds launched. And then we do all the headachy work, the IRS reporting and all the rest, so that the community only has to have a local board of directors that focus on some fundraising activities and then determine how they want to spend their grant money year in and year out. It also gives that community a tax exempt status for any donations they might want to collect for urgent immediate projects. Let's say it is playground equipment in their downtown area. they can raise on an annual basis tax-deductible donations to support that initiative and use the community fund as the charitable organization through which those dollars can flow. So community funds can be a huge asset to smaller towns in our region. We have a Paint the Town program in partnership with the Ace Hardware stores in our area, where murals, welcoming signs, historic buildings in smaller towns in our region can receive free paint for those projects on an annual basis. I think we did 16 projects this past summer, and every year we get exciting applicants for that program. And then each summer we offer a small town grant program where small towns can apply for up to $10,000 for a program, a project, an activity that matters to the future of their town. And we just issued those grants this past month after receiving those applicants during the summer. So watch for that every year. I'm just going to move on to the next slide. It does show how those resources are spread across the region. And then the slide after this is the slide that shows you where the 30 community funds under our umbrella are located. And every year we have one or two additional communities approach us to ask for assistance in setting up and maintaining a community fund for their benefit. So those are the towns that are currently served by a community fund in our 20 county region. And one of the ideas that we have come upon, thanks to the leadership of our sister foundation, the Southwest Initiative Foundation, which serves 18 counties in southwest and western Minnesota, is to take farmland as a donation. And unlike many charitable donations of land, where the land then gets sold by the university or the church, and someone else buys it and it cashes out, our intent would be to keep that land in production. So we would essentially become the farm manager. And so it's a way that a farm family that doesn't have an heir to take over the land can donate all or a portion of that land for a charitable tax benefit, knowing that the land will continue to be rented and used as farmland. About $7 billion worth of wealth in our southern Minnesota region exists, and most of it is tied up in the land. So this is a way of incenting farm families to keep that benefit working for the region or for the community they live by. Here again, our role would be to serve as essentially a farm manager, keeping the land in production. It's very possible we could continue renting to whoever might be renting that land from the farm family to begin with. And then after taxes and expenses, the proceeds could go into the endowment fund or the annual budget of any of these 30 community funds. It could go into our budget in the same way, and we could use it to the benefit of our programming across this 20 county region, or it could be established as a family fund and then used in a designated way as preferred by the family. So all of that is up to negotiation. We know that there are a few farms that have been donated along these lines to our sister foundation, the Southwest Initiative Foundation. We have a couple that have been pledged, but not yet donated here in our 20 county region. And we're simply trying to get the word out about this as an option for farm families to consider as they look to the future. But it's a way of leaving a legacy, and we're excited to bring this charitable option to farm families in this 20 county region. I think the next slide is simply a slide that leads us into the farmland succession program called Acres for Good. And the slide after that, just a few bullet points that summarize what I've just shared with my overview of this program. It's a charitable deduction. We'll keep it in production. The rental income after taxes and expenses will go to support a family fund, if that's the way you would like to create an endowment. It could go to support one of the 30 small town community funds in our region if you live near one of those towns and want to help them. But bottom line, it can support organizations and causes you believe in and carry on your family's legacy. The next slide up is just one example of a family over in southwestern Minnesota that did choose to donate land on this basis. and you can read for yourself. I'll give you a minute to read this, just a brief description of why they chose to do so. But in their case, they chose to set up a foundation in their family's name that supports nonprofits in their region that were important to their life and their family and their community. So the next slide is simply a quick overview of the extra work that we brought to our region during the COVID economic crisis. Annually, we have a budget of about $5 million dedicated in the ways that I've described in the previous slides. But we were a conduit for additional resources to be brought into our region to help communities and organizations in our region respond to the impact of COVID and the economic restrictions and shutdowns that occurred during those COVID months. Among them, dollars from the State Department of Education were made available to us to create what we call wraparound grants for school districts and communities to use to support early childhood initiatives. We distributed with federal money that came to us through the Department of Education or the Department of Economic Development, 1,024 small business relief grants last fall. These were $10,000 grants for each business. The state of Minnesota has tasked our foundation and the other 5 rural initiative foundations with distributing more of these business recovery grants this fall, and we will know by the end of the month how many businesses in our region are eligible to receive those grants, and we will process those grants. We also did some forgivable emergency loans at the front end of the crisis way back in April of 2020. We did emergency childcare grants at the front end of this crisis way back in April of 2020. We also provided matching grants to our 30 small town community funds for any grant making they did in response to the COVID and economic challenges that they faced. We gave a grant to 3 regional organizations, Cannon, Valley Grown, Driftless Grown, and Renewing the Countryside, to help them support local food producers and processors that were losing restaurant markets during the crisis and needed to learn quickly how to go to online sales in order to maintain their business and their profitability. So we had great success with those 3 grants to those 3 organizations. And then last year, we targeted all of our small town grants, 22 of them, to activities in those towns that were related to the challenges faced by COVID and the economic restrictions that were imposed. So that was extra work. It added up to about $12 million worth of additional resources that we were able to help funnel into our region to good benefit. So that's who we are and what we do. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to share this with your audience and to specifically share more information about this Acres for Good initiative.
Great. No, thank you for sharing that presentation. It was very informative, and we've had questions popping in both in the chat and via text here. So I've been keeping an eye on that. We've got a few questions as it relates to some of your economic development work, but since we're on Acres for Good, I'll start with some of the questions relevant to that. So Carol Anderson, one of our wonderful members in Benton County, asked, what happens to the property taxes paid to the county if this isn't a nonprofit's ownership?
Well, the property taxes would be paid just as they would on any farm operation. So that in terms of the county's revenue, the local school district revenue, none of that would change. That's the way this would be structured. And so it would really only be the rental income off of that land after those expenses are deducted that would either go into the Initiative Foundation budget or a community fund budget, or to fuel and fund a family foundation that might be created with this charitable gift.
Great. And then she also asked, we'll just go Carol's questions right in a row here. Can you share any successful projects you have funded / worked with to start daycare centers?
Yes, we just issued a loan for a daycare startup here in Owatonna, serving the minority population, the growing Somali Ethiopian population here in town. Historically, a lot of those families have handled childcare needs in a family friend neighbor arrangement, but they're now, the demand, the need is such that they wanted to set up a child care center. So that is underway now. We also used some of our resources a couple of years ago to work with 6 communities in our region to address their child care shortage. One small town, Wells, Minnesota, a couple thousand population at most, had no child care services available, even though they have a food processing facility there. Wells Concrete is a large employer there. And so the need for child care was existent, but it was difficult to get people to do in-home care just because of the cost and the regulation involved. School district did not have the capacity or the space to handle it. They sought to look at a vacant parochial school, but the conversion costs were too great. So we facilitated community conversations about creative solutions and came up on a solution that the downtown community bank had space at the back of their bank building that was perfectly suited to a couple daycare rooms with a kitchenette, with bathrooms, with everything you'd need. The county public health said that that would work. They could certify it for childcare. And so now a couple in-home providers can go use that space to provide childcare in that community. In Eagle Lake, another of the 6 communities we worked with a grant from us, they were able to expand an existing church-based childcare facility so that it could serve more families in that community. And so different communities will require different solutions. And our assistance and some of our grant making has been available to pursue those sorts of diverse solutions.
Yeah, thank you for that.
If you can slide ahead, the next slide, just for a moment, simply shows where all those 1,024 small business recovery grants went. And the slide after that, I think, is the closing slide that basically thanks folks. And there's, I think, a final slide with our contact information, which might be good to keep on the screen. So yeah. Thank you for letting me do that, Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great slide to have because one of the next questions that I was going to use as a wrap up was from Linda Larson, another of our great members, who asked, how can emerging small businesses connect with you? So yep. Linda, there, if you're still watching, there's your slide.
There it is.
It's got all the information. So thank you so much for sharing that. I have one last question here with the last few minutes remaining. It's about the farm donation process. And it asks, can a donor say they want to rent to a new or beginning farmer, essentially designate how they want the land managed? And what happens if organization you designate ceases to exist?
Yeah, all of that needs to be worked out ahead of time. So how this will work is the attorney for our foundation, who has expertise in this area, as well as the attorney for the family, will kind of work out all of those details and spell those things out as best we can. I mean, as an example, there's a donation, a charitable donation coming our way to support an endowment fund, which will then in turn support programs at a few school districts in our region. I'll be general in describing this because we're still working out the details. But between us and the attorney for that family, those questions are being addressed. What happens if these school districts merge and that, things change, or what happens if the needs that we initially dedicate these dollars toward, these educational needs, change? They're trying to address in the contract, in the donation or the charitable donation contract, sort of an anticipation of how we might handle those situations as they arrive. So that donor intent is what these charitable donations are all about. And all of that, we, as best we can, we try to work out at the front end in negotiation with the family and the attorney representing the family.
Great. Well, thank you we're right up at time here. So thank you for joining us today, Tim. This was great. And personally, thank you for the work you do. I know for me personally, my home being served by the passionate folks at Smith is a huge thing. So thank you so much for the work you do. Next week, we'll have Ann Steckel from National Farmers Union here to talk about biofuels. So definitely join us. It's fun to have folks from our national wing of our organization be here. So thanks so much, Tim, for joining us. Thanks everyone for watching. I know we didn't get to all the questions, but I think we had a really good discussion. So thanks so much.
Thanks all. Take care.
Dig your hand in the land.